Welcome back, everyone. This is OCS episode 12, baby. And today we're going to talk about Pariah Nexus and breaking it down, the intricacies, the new changes, everything that's going on with Pariah Nexus. So, before we get started, first things first, as always, give us a war cry. Huh?
Huh?
It's so much funnier. So much more funnier. There you go. There you go. Dude, please, thumbs up for that hat. Come on. We're going to put it on every single show. We're going to change up. He hates Thousand Suns, by the way. So send us funds so we can get him Thousand Suns hats so he can wear it on the show. If you send us extra funds, I'll put it on myself.
You're the one that always teams with Thousand Suns at team tournaments. You should wear it.
I do. Oh my gosh. And as always, special thank you to our audience, the OCS family. Thank you to everyone who subscribed. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to subscribe. Your support means the world to us. It keeps the show going strong, as always. A special hug to our sponsors, Big Bear 3D, Battleboard Studios, and Baron of Dice. Special thanks to our family sponsor, Art of War. Be sure to go check them out on YouTube for exciting content. Their strategies and insights are invaluable to anyone looking to up their game. Don't forget, on the next OCS episode 13, we're going to continue on to break down Pariah Nexus. We're going to make sure to bring you our current meta. Hopefully, there's some RTTs that have been going on. I know me and Thomas played a couple of games versus or with each other, also with other individuals as well. I know Matt from Almost Functional is going to get a couple games in. So we're going to go live again next week. We're going to try to get all the content that we can get to you as quick as possible, predicated on Pariah Nexus. So we want to make sure you're educated, which is what OCS is all about, and you understand exactly what's going on with Pariah Nexus, all right? But today we have something special, and we're going to continue on with that and exclusive content, and hopefully it surprises you. So welcome back, gentlemen, as always, and welcome Thomas for the first time. He is going to be a homestead for all of the Onslaught Gaming platforms, things like that we're going to be doing in the future. Matt, as always, from Almost Functional, has always been here. He is a good friend of mine, family, everything. We're going to ATC in a couple weeks as well. He gracefully invited two of us. I was just the first one to mention it, so it might not have been me. But
well, honestly, my first choice in that chat was David, but no one knows he's not coming.
You heard that, people?
I told you about telling people I'm friends with you in public, Lewis.
Sorry, I know I can't use the F word in public. Sorry, my bad, man. I know we're more enemies, frenemies, if anything. And Thomas, go ahead, brother. What were we gonna say, Matt?
I would say we're cuddle buddies, but that's fine.
Hey, YouTube algorithms, first 2 minutes, man. After 2 minutes.
I didn't say any bad words.
I don't know. Everything's bad nowadays, to be honest with you. But anyways, Thomas, so please, I know you've been on the show before for Operation Series, specifically for a Slaanesh one, Slaanesh Demons that you had done, right? Which was called the Neverborn, right? Mm-hmm. So please, just in case nobody's ever met you before, give them a breakdown of what you're all about, what you do. Nothing super personal, just, what you bring to the community of 40K, man.
I'm just really another hobby enthusiast. I enjoy the game. It's just really expensive chess, honestly. If you made it this far and you're still unsure about 40K, that's what you're getting into. Funnily enough, I actually am mid-game in my living room with my roommate right now with Slaanesh into Orcs. And we're at the top of turn 3, and I'm like, give me like an hour and a half. I got to go do something. So as soon as I hop off here, I'm hopping right back into that. But yeah, I play a couple armies. I enjoy the hobby. I'm not try hard about it. I just like to go roll dice, get mad at statistics, and have a good time. On the other end, though, I am a huge nerd for the rules. So I love learning, diving in depth, finding the nuance. not necessarily executing it, but just knowing about it is I'm all about it.
Love it, man. Sorry, that hat is still getting me. That
His tagline broke me. I tried to remain, and I just looked up and I'm like, damn it.
You're muted, Matt. You're muted. We can't read lips yet. Not yet.
How about now?
There you go. We hear you now.
Leaned on my button. Yeah, as you can tell, I take 40K very seriously. This is no laughing matter over here. Don't make me come bite you on the ankle, Lewis.
Wolf with the wolf hat. Oh my God.
I am a through and through Space Wolf player, so don't y'all think I'm making fun of them. I'm just having fun. I love my Space Wolves. Been playing them since second.
It doesn't look like that to the world.
Hey, you don't rock this if you don't love your wolves, okay?
That's right. It's true. True indeed. Who am I to judge a man with a wolf hat on like that, man?
It's so bad. As soon as Game of Thrones on, I had to root for House Stark. I had no choice, you know? I was like...
Automatically. You had to immediately.
Yeah. I was Team Jacob in Twilight, you know? If it's wolves, I got to go with it.
You got to go with wolves, man. Love werewolves. I'm a big werewolf fan, too. Not enough to put on that hat, but I'm a big werewolf fan. Gotta love it. So, into the content. So, we're going to talk about Pariah Nexus, the first topic we're going to talk about, and then our experts are going to basically give their views, their ideas on things that are exactly going on, especially the wolf. The wolf is going to give the most content, I think, on the show today. So, first topic, we're going to talk about the new mission deck, everything that's going on, the introduction of the new season of missions, some favorite missions from the previous pack remaining, right? With a lot of added ones. And I was just telling Almost Functional earlier that this almost seems like 11th edition. It's not really like a 10.5. It's almost like 11th edition. And there's also some subtle, significant changes to improve the gaming experience. So what do you guys feel about it? Starting with Matt, what do you feel about the new Pariah Nexus? How are you feeling playing your games, testing them out, doing all of your show stuff where you're putting out the deployments?
Well, yeah, I'm enjoying. I always love when there's a shakeup to the game. I find I'm good at adjusting on the fly. So when nobody knows what's going on, I feel like that's when I'm at my best. Once everybody gets in and down to the nuance and math hammer and tweaking out, that's when I kind of start falling back a little bit. But if it's just like off the seat of my pants trying to figure it out, like I find that's where I'm my best.
Yeah. Have you found any challenges in the new mission deck? Anything like that? Anything that's kind of thrown you out of the window, or maybe just feel like, hey, maybe this should have changed? Anything like that? Or something maybe that you like coming back, missions, secondaries, or whatnot?
So far, I really like the changes. The missions, I like. The few they tweaked that they kept are good. All the new ones I like. I like that the deployments got varied up. I know a lot of people are iffy on the stair steps, but I like something weird and new to adjust to. I like that there's more secondaries and they're more varied. You can use the strat to spin through them more. I think it'll... Honestly, from what most people are saying, secondaries are a little harder to score, so maybe we're not going to have as many 100-point games, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, don't tell that to Thomas. Thomas, what are your views?
Well, I like the small changes. Going off of Almost Functional, the secondaries are not necessarily harder to score on their face, because like Engaging All Fronts, for example, changed to, instead of being 6 inches away from another zone border quadrant, or 3 inches away if you're in all 4 quadrants, just not within 6 of the center. Much easier to do.
That's the way it used to be back in the day. But
now it's worth 1 less point. Instead of 3 and 5, it's 2 and 4.
That's right.
There are, I believe, 2, maybe 3 secondaries that require you to stay alive to the end of your opponent's next turn, which allows for interaction, which I love. I love interactive. Like I said on the Slanesh video, I want to sit back, gunline castle, kill you for 3 turns, then come out and win and have only played 20% of the game. Not my bag, not what I consider fun. So things that force interaction, I'm a huge fan of. But the steps deployment, for example, I know some people are worried because it's only 16 inches apart. You're really close. The counter side to that is you have a lot of backfield to cover.
Yep.
Like Lewis mentioned, we played 2 games, we practiced, and game number 1 was kind of a rough game. Both of us getting our footing, trying out new stuff, not really sure where we were or what we were doing, just getting a feel. But even immediately, the general over here realized, like, wait a minute, I can run at you all I want, but now my backfield, and had the game gone on, he lost his home objective. Yep. The second game we played, he did not make that mistake, and that option would not have been available to me all 5 turns, which something that I would tell people to consider is if you lose, 4 to 2 inches in the center, depending on old deployment versus new, you gained, an inch or 2 of backfield to protect. And It doesn't sound like much until you're playing that Imperium player who has a Calidus, which is this big of a base. Mm-hmm. Or that Spore Mine gets fired because, let's not forget, 0 OC just can't do actions. They can still be models in places or engage in all fronts or behind enemy lines. So it's the small changes like that I think might go unnoticed in light of the, oh no, there's smaller no man's land.
Yeah, just because you have a 12-inch deployment doesn't mean you have to deploy 12 inches up. You can still deploy your 10, and then they only gain 2 inches.
Mm-hmm. So,
and on the stair step, you're only going to get 1 unit in that point. And if you're worried about your opponent getting to you, slide your unit back an inch, slide them over an inch, and you can expand that. You don't have to put a unit right in that point. Only way they get is 16 inches. If you put yours right in that point and they put theirs right in the point, you can easily slide back in that big deployment zone and take that away from them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very easily. You can counter that very easily. Yep. And speaking of which, so to our next topic, right, we're going to talk about actions. So actions in Pariah Nexus has changed significantly. There's clear definition of what actions are now, which I really love and how they work, right? Units that are battle shocked or OC0 cannot perform any actions now, which I continue to love. Removal of ability to perform actions when advancing with an assault weapon or shooting with pistols in combat, right? That's a new change for those of you, right, that haven't read up. Titanic characters can perform actions now as long as they only shoot but cannot fight or charge. And one big tidbit that I wanted to bring to everybody as well, and then we'll get the experts' opinions on this, is some mathematical statistics here or probabilities, right? The probability of drawing an action card per round. Now, this is also predicated that you're not shuffling back into it to get a CP and stuff like that. But if you were to draw 2 per round, the probability of at least 1 action card in the first battle round is 49%. Second battle round is 45%. Third is 39%. Fourth battle round is 31%. And the fifth battle round is 20%. But the combined probability of drawing at least 1 action card in all rounds is less than 1%, which means that battle line is very important, right? You want to make sure that you have enough battle line to do all of these actions. Hopefully you pull a good mission rule where you can continue to do all these actions after you advance or fall back, right? But battle just means that Pariah Nexus brings battle lines back into the game, right? They're trying to force us to use our troops again. And I think it's very prevalent, especially that we have, and me and Thomas talked about this, right? Matter of fact, Thomas, go ahead. I'll let you break down the 5, 6, 7 to everybody that we've been talking about, right? I love the 5, 6, 7, and I hope everybody remembers it as the 5, 6, 7. So you heard it here first. This was Thomas's thought. Yep.
It's very easy. So there are 3 things to do in Warhammer that ever matter. It is being in a spot, which is normally tied to objectives. There is doing a thing, which is now actions, and they've been codified. And there is killing your opponent. That is your, 1, giving them less things to do options 1 and 2 with. and also your assassinate, no prisoners, call the horde. Those. There are 5 action secondaries that you can draw into. There are 6 kill a thing secondaries.
That's right.
And there are 7 be in a spot secondaries. To give you examples, action secondaries are things like cleanse, establish locus, things such as that. Kill, like I said, is your assassinate, your call to horde. Overwhelming force is kill a thing on an objective. And then you have your specific kill a things, bring it down. And then be in a place is, as we've already talked about, engaging off fronts, behind enemy lines. Storm hostile is be in a place, be on an objective your opponent was controlling and now you are. So, and the deck does break down very neatly into 5, 6, 7 for a total of 18 cards.
It does.
Now, as a note, I will add on to what you were saying though. Not only battle line, but I personally think that if you have it in your Codex Index, any unit with a double-digit move characteristic, anything as fly infantry, especially like jump packs or gargoyles for Tyranid players, but things that can easily move around. Vehicles are less hurt due to new rules that we may or may not talk about. But double-digit move and infiltrators, and to a lesser extent, scouts. Because as we said, 7 of those 18 cards, which is almost half, require you to be in a spot. And if you draw, be in a spot, and do an action, I mean, you could have 2 units do those, or just 1 fast unit or pre-positioned with scout or infiltrate to go do it. And now you're not having to worry about trade 2 things to get 7 points on average.
Yep.
You just trade the 1. So, battle line, great. Double-digit move characteristic. Or infiltrators, also fantastic to help your scoring and jockeying for board position.
I agree. And with the new deck, I found on my list, I used to have 2 strats I would do twice. I do it, and then I do it for free with the captain. Now that's gone. I can only do it once. So if I do it with
Rights
the
of
captain,
battle or Rights of battle or something?
Rights of battle, yeah.
Yep.
But now that that's changed, I'm only doing that strat once. So if I do it the free time, I have an extra CP. So it'll give me a couple extra CP through the game, which I believe I'm going to use to cycle the deck to help me with secondaries and still end up at the same point CP-wise, because I'm taking CP I can't spend at a spot I used to spend them and using them on the deck.
That's a great point. It's a valid point you bring up.
That is do you want to explain to people that may not understand the difference between Leviathan and Pariah, what it is you're talking about almost? What changed specifically?
Oh, you're talking about the stratagem thing?
Yes. No, new orders. How that changed.
Oh,
That's a big change too.
Yeah. New orders used to be a once per game stratagem where for 1 CP you can discard your card and draw a new one. Now you can do it every turn. So you could do it 5 times in the game if you wanted to.
Yep.
So now, before there used to be, you at most could get, if you do 2 cards every turn, was it 10 cards? Cycle once for 11. I don't know if there's any, was that the most you could get before 11 out of 16?
In tournaments, yes. There was a mission rule that was never used.
Yeah.
Draw 3 and pick 2.
Draw 3, yeah. But yeah, in tournaments, the best you could do was 11 out of 16. So there's always going to be 5 you didn't hit. If you use that CP to cycle all 5 turns, you could potentially see 15 out of 18, which only leaves 3 cards undrawn. So you actually have a better chance now, even though there's more cards, to see all the cards you want to see. You just have to plan for that CP-wise.
And on top of that,
run out, you get no more, which is like before too. But now you can run a lot quicker. Yeah.
To your point, I was going to say that not only would you get to 15, but cards have built-in anti feel bad mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Like both of my games I've played, both first turns I drew behind enemy lines, and it's very nice. It and a few others on there say if you draw this turn 1, you can put it back and draw a new one, or like bring it down if your opponent just took YOLO 180 boys and 60 Gretchen and call it a list,
Yep.
monster vehicles, you can discard, bring it down, and free draw. So
Yeah, so
there
that's
are
something. Yeah, pay attention to the wording on those because some of them tell you to put them back and reshuffle. Some of them tell you to get rid of them. And
Correct.
then I believe defend is the only one you have to put back in the deck. Most of the other ones now say may. There was a few before that said if you drew them turn 1, you had to get rid of them. Now there's a few that say you can put it back, but if you think you're going to turn it turn 2, you can actually choose to hold on to some of those now.
Defend is the only one that you have to, yes.
Yep.
And on that change, the most prominent one is Storm Hostile Objective. It used to be the worst fixed one because it would cap out at 16. Because even with fixed, you could not score at turn 1. Now, if you're planning to get offensive and you know your opponent is Canoptic Cork with race that can infiltrate, or is Demon with infiltrators or scouts that want to get their shadows up, or another army with similar mechanics or buffs for being on objectives early, you could potentially punish them and say, cool, I'll take Storm Hostile. Worst case scenario, I get 16. I mean, if it's a relatively even game. Best case scenario, I got 20 on it. And before that was just impossible. You were stuck with 16 best case. So,
and something to consider when you're playing fixed, I mean, and even tactical, raised banners now, those 5 points count towards secondary, not primary on the mission rule. So they can help you with that secondary. If you have a tactical, you're like, man, I can get 16, but I can't. But if you can get those couple rays, it can balance that out.
Yep. I like that. Those extra points can get you a lot. That extra point can get you a win.
Yeah. Although they're doing it twice at ATC, and I'm going to score 0 points off it both times because I'm running 0 battle line.
Mr. Lewis, do you want to inform people about the one major change between fixed and secondary?
Mr. Lewis.
The day 1 FAQ for I can't remember the name of it.
The recover assets and stuff like that you're talking about?
Yes, sir. Because it's printed on the card, so some people might not immediately be aware of it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so there were quite a few. Changes.
I got them all printed here if you don't have them in front of you.
3 of them for a secondary, 1 mission, and 1 primary. So the recover assets one was just removed from the fixed, right? So it's no longer a fixed secondary mission. The wording has changed from unit to models for assassination. So make sure that you're aware of that, right? That it's only models, it's not units. So you don't have to kill an entire character unit since the character keyword is shared throughout the entire unit. You just need to kill that character. So if you get precision, you're perfectly fine. Call the Horde, right? That's also a good one, an exciting one for a lot of you. But I believe I mentioned this in another show as well, that Call the Horde is only predicated on what you've paid in. So if you have, and me playing orcs, right? I buy 20 boys. You pay for the 20 boys, but you can play 19, but you still get called a horde for 20 boys because it's what you paid in for. Now, a lot of people were trying to be cheeky about it and say that they wanted to run 19 boys. But also what they didn't realize is that if they were putting a war boss and a pain boy in the unit, they could no longer use both of those characters in there either. So they were going to lose out on one of those characters. So I was just prepared for an event for somebody to tell me, like, hey, is this fine? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be cheeky and try to get these call to horde points. I was like, yeah, that's super fine. Just make sure you take out your war boss or your pain boy, and then you can run it legally.
Well, it actually says attached leader units don't count.
Yeah. He's talking about the orc rule.
I'm talking about previously, yeah.
Well, even on the other card, it said that your characters never counted.
No, he's talking about the orc rule where if you have a 20 boy strong unit, you can put 2 characters, not 1.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you meant they're counting their wounds for the thing.
Correct. But can I just mention something I love about the 40K community is I saw that discourse as well, and I was a fan personally. I'm like, all right, because it's a tactical decision. Do you want 19 of a unit and just pay for 10 to 13 points, depending on the unit you're talking about, that you're not going to use, and lose similar buffs like characters or whatever, just to give up 1 card that they're then going to be able to reshuffle for free or keep for a CP? Like, you're making this sacrifice so they potentially don't score. Because then even if you bring it, they got to kill it. Like 20 orc boys with a pain boss, God forbid if it's the wall turn or even just Green Tide Army. I mean, sure, kill those 20 boys, get your 5 points. Oh, look, that unit of knobs with a character and gas with 3 mega knobs are still alive because you didn't shoot them. It was just a weird trade-off that people were talking about, but as Lewis said, GW came forward, nipped it in the bud, said, nope, you paid for 20. We don't care how many you fielded. The card still works. So,
Yep, and I also like the Scorched Earth one. That was a little confusing for us when we first got the deck on Saturday. We actually went to the Warhammer store out here in Tampa, and we played a couple of games with a couple of friends of ours. And we noticed, because we played Scorched Earth, we picked Mission O. And we noticed in Scorched Earth that, or actually, that wasn't Mission O, was it, for Scorched Earth? Or O was Star Wars. Was Terraform. Yeah, it was Terraform and Stalwarts. But this one, we ended up playing a different mission in a different game. And it said each time the player burns an objective marker instead of each time a player burns, which is the new errata to it, makes a big difference, right? Makes a big, big difference on who does that and basically how many times you can do that. And then the last one for the mission rule was hidden supplies. And the update to that was otherwise the players roll off and the winner selects which corner the objective marker is moved to, right? They didn't have that extra caveat in there. People didn't know where to start and do that, so they added that. So obviously, we're all going to have to wait once again, like we did with the Leviathan, for a new deck that's updated with all the new information. But if you're like me, right, and you like to have the information immediately, then you'll probably try to do something like this, right? Where you're just making an errata on your card itself. Don't try to put like a sticky note or anything like that it's going to be obvious when you're trying to pull it, especially to your opponent. That's just basically cheating. So just try to make an errata on the card itself, or have a little cheat sheet and tell your opponent, hey, you know, just so you're aware, this has been errated. I know you don't have the sheet in front of you. And it's something usually people just leave behind too, right? You're not going to walk around with an entire companion on you, right?
Or are you? I got it all printed out and in a binder.
I have a wasp in my house.
Look at this thing. I got everything.
Look at you, man.
It doesn't want to show up because of my background thing, but got all the layouts, all the FAQs, everything in there.
That's nice. Yeah, you're bringing all the information with you, everything that you need.
Well, that's for ATC, so the team has it on hand.
Nice. So, yeah, while we're on to the primary missions and secondaries, so favorites from the previous pack have been refined for clarity and removed ambiguity, adjustments to objective placement ranges to prevent stacking in deployment zones, which I like very much, right? An introduction of new missions to encourage diverse playstyles. So we've noticed that as of lately, and that's more predicated on your tournament organizer as well, right? If they're an individual like myself, where they actually study the action, the mission pool itself, and look to set you up for success with some diversity throughout that event, they'll pick out the correct missions for you. Like just recently, I ended up picking out CKO, which is one of the preferences and recommendations from the companion, right? The Pariah Nexus companion. So my next event that I run in Kissimmee, Rubicon 5, is actually going to be CKO. And if you look, it has a lot of diversity. It's going to be a little bit heavier, where obviously it's 3 rounds. 2 of them are going to be predominantly battle line heavy. But that just means if you're looking at it, you're studying it before you go to my event, right? Bring yourself some extra battle line. It might actually help, right? Modifications also to the missions like Burden of Trust, otherwise known as Sites of Power. It's less character dependent now, right? So that's a great interaction with that. Now you don't have to have a multitude of characters, even though orcs used to or still continue to be, depending on what type of meta you're doing now with orcs. I know a lot of people used to run a lot of war bosses and mega armor, a lot of regular war bosses, Snick Rod, things like that, where with their big nerf, right? Maybe you've taken less characters with you. Also, Recovery assets cannot be chosen as a fix, right? Like we already talked about, right? And we already talked about, as Thomas spelled out, that 5 and 6 rule: do something, kill something, and be somewhere. So,
and the importance of battle line will really depend on which missions your TO picks. Because for ATC, there's one mission that has swift action. None of the other ones have the things that benefit battle line doing actions.
Yes.
And I realized, I don't know if it was Shane or JD, one of them had a really bad night when they picked the missions. Because I noticed when they wrote them out, it's mission BJPAIN, which spells BJ Pain.
I saw that too. I was like, BJ picked.
Yeah, so I messaged JD. I was like, you know what this... And I'm assuming that's the order they put them in, because they didn't go like A, B, they went B, J, P, A, I. So they're not in alphabetical order, so I'm assuming that's the order they're running them in.
Yeah, I think that was intentional. I don't know.
I know. So one of them had a bad night, and they wanted us all to know.
Look, all I'm going to say is, if TOs want to have a good time with their players, final round every tournament, unexplode ordnance.
So I'm great. I'm happy that you brought that up, right? So for those of you who are not aware, all right, are not on the back end channels or things like that, there are missions that are not intended to be used, and those are the missions that have less deployments on them, right, or less layouts rather, and you should not use those for competitive play. Now, you can use whatever you want, so I'm not telling you what to do, but these particular layouts and mission pools in the mission section. So if you're rolling a D20, right? Somebody brought this up that you can roll a D20 now to pick a mission.
Yeah, that's so much nicer.
Yeah, it is, but you also want to omit 16, 17, 18, and 19. You don't want to run QRST, all right?
Run them all. Don't be a bitch.
Don't. Those are not designed completely for competitive play. So look out for your players. I mean, if you want to.
And they're in the tournament companion. Make them run it.
Don't run unexplode ordnance unless you're just having like a for fun RTT. And even then, you have a very, very loose definition of fun.
Hey, make everybody wear their soccer jerseys. Tell them we're playing soccer today.
For those of you who don't know, unexplode ordnance, or it used to be called servo skulls, is a very fun mission for the player going first.
Yes.
The very long story short is the first player can both players can do an action to kick an objective. And they kick it 6 inches. The closer to your opponent's deployment zone it is, the more points you get. Problem is, it only moves at static 6. So if you have one in the center, and they kick it 6 to their opponent's deployment zone, well, it's now by definition over the halfway line, so they get points. Let's say you go second. You kick it back, well, it's only at the center. You get nothing. They kick it back, they get points, and it goes on. It's very, somebody really likes it. It stayed. Good. I'm glad people enjoy the hobby. My God, is it a bad mission?
It is. It is. It is. So TOs try to stay away. QRST, right? That's the last 4. I mean, if you want to listen to Matt and you want to have you a BJ Pain of an event, then run them all. But you're going to hear a lot of people complaining, and you're going to be all over the place with scores.
When they come complain, just tell them, get good, noob.
That's right.
Hey, I want to play with the ball. Let's play.
Let's
go.
One thing I will add, and I was waiting until we brought up the missions to add it, that 5, 6, 7 thing is actually 5, 6, 7, 8, because 3 of the primaries also require actions. Raise banner and terraform being 2 examples.
Correct.
So on top of cleanse, sabotage, locus, recover assets, and my God, I'm missing one. I'm bad. You have, terraform, and the other one I just mentioned a second ago. But yeah, sites of power. You spawn in an objective, or not the ritual. I'm sorry.
Yep.
And then even on top of that, as almost functional mentioned, raise banners. is an action mission rule. So
Actually, raise banners, I don't believe is actually an action. You just have a battle line unit in place, I believe.
okay.
But a containment.
Well, let's check.
Containment's the other secondary action.
Contain.
The one where you gotta do it like next to the table sides. Let's see. I got them all right here. Raise banners. At the end of each player's turn, if a battle line unit from your army is within range of an objective marker that player controls, that unit raises a banner on the objective marker. That player scores 1 VP, which is counted towards secondary. Yeah, so it doesn't actually say do an action. Just be there at the end of your turn with a battle line.
Just be there. Just exist.
So,
that's it. And it's done.
There's 8 total actions then. There are the 5 secondaries and the 3 primaries.
Yep.
So just be aware if you're playing, like, I thought I heard on this podcast there was only 5 action secondaries, not actions total.
But still, you gotta do a thing.
Yeah, and a fun clarification they had is that one model can use its OC to hold 2 objectives if it's wide enough to do it, but each model can only do an action once. So don't get those conflated. That you can hold multiple, you cannot action multiple though.
That's right.
Which is a big change because you used for a long time you could control an objective, multiple objectives with a unit, but not a model.
Yep.
Right.
And unless you're playing the ritual, it's going to be very rare that objectives are close enough to do that. But
I think it's just more help for Titanic Knight armies mainly.
Yep.
So they can summon in another one and then still hold their 10 for having them summoned. So
yeah, because you put the one right at 12, but trying to get the 3-inch control and the width of the objective. Yeah, they're only like 5.5 inches apart. So those big bases can definitely tag 2 objectives in the ritual.
Quick question. Can we answer questions from chat or no? I'm sorry. I just saw a very...
Just prompt me, and I'll let you know. So Maxwell has one. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
So read it out loud, and if you got an answer for it, read it, brother. Go ahead, do it. Rock and roll.
So Maxwell says, how are you guys changing list designs for the various factions that you run now that you have a couple reps with new mission dynamics? And buddy, I will tell you, we've talked a lot about battle line and its importance in the strategy. I play Slanesh demons and I have 0 battle line, no demonettes. I changed my list by just windmill slamming 3 soul grinders into that list. And aside from just the memes of having a beefy stat check list, with the new, I want to say Locust, but the new Shadows of Chaos rule, all the greater demons get.
Yeah.
It is a lot of forward pressure and just unexpected mobility, especially for soul grinders who traditionally, with their wide spider legs, like, gimme. This thing is massive. Like this, like it doesn't even fit in the palm of my hand. But now I can now summon him.
3 now? 3? Is it 3 now?
3 of them and four keepers. Three generic keepers and Shalaxi.
Yeah.
And then I'm also bringing Selesky, the demonic Celestine. For those of you who don't know, when you kill Selesky at the end of the phase, you roll a d6 on a 2-up. They come back right where they were, or as close as possible, not within engagement range. So you got to kill her twice.
Yep.
But that's how my demon list has changed. I took out all the chop, threw in all the beef, same amount of keepers, and just deep strike shenanigans will ensue. Because demons, if you're within shadows, which all the greater demons radiate, you can deploy or arrive 6 away and still declare charges. And for Tyranids, I am putting warriors back in my list. I'm also running Zone Throats because Zone Throats are in a very, very good place right now, and I'm curious to see if they stay there. But while they're there, I'm going to use them. And warriors, Tyranids got a +1 strength.
Why are you bringing them? Do you think the meta needs them? You need that extra oomph? Why are you bringing them?
Zone Throats are Tyranid's best anti-tank bar none. And now they gained a new leader, the Neuro Tyrant, who was almost never led anything. It was just taken for its own buff of -1 to leadership when you call Shadows in the War, if it's on the battlefield. Well, now its leader buff is +1 to hit. So Zone Throats hit on 2s. And, they hit on 3s natively. With the leader, they hit on 2s. Exocrine shooting, their buff is if they hit a target, anything else in your army that shoots that target rerolls ones. So now you have a battery of hitting on twos, rerolling ones, strength 12, AP3, D6 plus 1 damage, lethal hits. Natively. You don't need any other buff to be lethal. Or strength 7, AP2, D3 damage, blast, D3 plus 1 shots. And so, and then if you're shooting at a battle shock target against a Tyrannid's army, I know one of that ever happened.
Yep.
The Neurotyrant gives them +1 to wound as well as +1 to hit. So now you're wounding knights on 3s.
Yep.
You're wounding Custodes on 2s. It gets real nasty real fast.
And the Neurotyrant, is he a monster?
Yes, he is, which is a perfect segue into why they are very good. The way Big Guns Never Tire is written, a monster model can fire, but the second paragraph says any other guns in the monster's unit can then fire as well. And because Zoanthropes are infantry models, they don't take the -1 penalty for shooting into engaged combats. So even if you tag them, like let's say, I'm gonna bump you with a Rhino. The Neurotyrant's -1 to hit. It has a 2d6 strength 5 AP1 2 damage flavor. Cool, it's -1 to hit. It doesn't care. The Zoanthropes are not -1 to hit, and they're still +1 on top of it. So yeah, they're it is and on top of that they have the fly keyword. So they're synapse, so in synaptic detachment, they get all the buffs. They are also fly keyword, which is cool. I guess they move 5, it doesn't matter. Until you realize that Vanguard Invader is a keyword that is given to specific units and anything with fly.
Yep.
So Vanguard Invader has at the end of your opponent's turn, pick up 1 unit or 2 Vanguard Invaders. You can just pluck them off the board if not engaged. Vanguard Invader have a bring in 2 Vanguard Invader units from strat reserves a turn early. So you could theoretically spend a CP and bring in Zoanthropes turn 1, 24 inches away, blast something, put Gargoyles or Hormagaunts in front of them so they can't be engaged at the end of your opponent's turn and pick them back up.
Khan, so we haven't forgot about you. We're going to answer your question. We're going to pay the bills real quickly to one of our very special sponsors. And then we're going to run into answering your question, Khan. And then we're going to run into talking to Matt about how he feels about the Space Wolves, any changes that he has to his list, and why exactly he's doing them. All right, so give us 1 minute. We're going to pay the bills real quick, and we'll be right back. Now with a word from our sponsor, Baron of Dice. Baron of Dice is your one-stop shop for premium wargaming dice. Our dice are made with premium resin materials and colored dyes. Each die is hand-mixed to the desired result and then carefully swirled with 2, 3, or 4 colors in a silicone mold before being laser engraved with a wicked symbol and finished in a matte or gloss polish. There are no imperfections in our dice, no balancing issues, no micro bubbles or mold lines. This is the difference between. You can, quite literally, feel and hear a difference with our dice. Whatever game you play, whatever style your team or faction rocks, we're sure to have something to elevate your game. With over 500 styles and over 4,000 customer reviews, welcome to the best dice on the planet. Now back to our show. All right, and as I always like to say, right, make sure to go and support Baron of Dice. They have some of the best dice. If you ever played against Thomas, against his Tyranids or his demons, Carmelo, first of all, Carmelo's a very good friend of mine, a very wonderful individual in the community. He would probably love to pick your brain, Thomas, when it comes to bugs. He loves bugs. He's always messaged me about bugs. And everything that I tell him, I learned from you. So basically, I'm just the middleman for the situation. But his dice from Baron of Dice are so hot rolling. They roll hot. I mean, they always do a fantastic job. So, all right, Con, we're going to answer your question, and then we're going to run into the Matt episode. So, Con says, do y'all think with the new mission pack and specifically the secret missions that we'll see a rise in lists that are just meant to table opponents? What do you think, guys? I think
No.
Probably less, more frequently now, to be honest with you.
Well, first, I just almost your thoughts.
I don't know if the mission pack specifically, but I've noticed some of these layouts have a lot more shooting gallery setup. So I could see that possibly giving someone who likes to play a shooty type, try to table you type list, the thought of trying it because they've got a lot more angles on some of these layouts than they used to. I don't know that the secret mission or the mission pack itself lean into that as much, but I believe some of the layouts might encourage people to try that.
Your thoughts, Thomas?
I don't think in like a general field of play we'll see it because I think actually the potential, because if you're going to try and table your opponent, either shooting or melee, you have to come out to get those angles. And if you're coming out, you might as well hold objectives. And if you're doing both of those things, you are disabling yourself from taking a secret mission because remember, you can't just choose them. It's top of turn 3. The player going second gets the option first to take one, and you can only...
End of turn 3.
It's not top, it's end of turn 3?
End of turn 3, yep.
End of turn 3, starting with the person who went second.
So end of turn 3. So you get another turn to score, but the main thing is you have to be tied or behind on the scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Not primaries or secondaries, both. Yep. So you have to either let yourself get submarined, have a lead taken on you, or which if you're planning on tabling your opponent, I cannot imagine a world where that's like it almost seems counterproductive, right? To avoid primary and secondary, but be out on the board killing your opponent. And the other thing though is if you do that and you take that big swing to just I'm going to table you by the top of turn 4. By turn 3 you're gutted, turn 4 you're tabled, and you miss. And then they hit you from the relative safety behind their angles in their deployment zone. You've gotten in range of them. And then you start losing stuff with no real way to retaliate because you're overextended.
Yeah. What
could have been an even or close game or maybe a victory to you anyway, you just threw away because you thought you could roll a couple more 4-ups than you did. So
right.
You're maxed at 40 points total for primary with the secret mission. So you can only give so much of a lead because if they get to 45 or 50 anyway, they're still beating you on primary.
Exactly. So you can try to strategize it and kind of, block your opponent from trying to get those points or using these secret missions, right? But I mean, you got other fish to fry throughout the game, and if he's already beating you in points, and then he can't do it, and you're just going to hold back to not beat him, you probably don't want to do that. It's maybe not an effective strategy every single time. And I know me and Thomas talked about
the best thing that would have a chance at it would be like super aggressive combat force that could get into their opponent early and just shoot through them and keep them pinned back by not getting primary. But with some of these layouts being more favorable to shooting, I don't know that those type of armies would do well overall in a tournament.
Absolutely.
And also, on this note, the Slanesh list I gave has 0 battle line. None. So someone could just make their plan, let him score primary, I'll score my home objective, and that's it. I'll give him his 10s, 8s, whatever. And then top of 4, I'll only be at 12. He'll be at 24. Cool. Yeah. I'll take a secret mission. My plan is already to dominate primary. I have 8 units. I'm not going to be out doing actions, and a lot of the cards are going to be CP or dead to me by the nature of that list. So if my opponent's plan is, just let him play the way he wants for 3 turns, and then I'll come back. All right. Yeah, cool. You're just giving me 3 turns of a game, so.
Yeah, my list does similar. I have no battle line, but it gets into you early, and it keeps you from getting to the table. And I got a lot of little trash units that, while they're not battle line, they are specifically there to hold objectives and do secondaries.
Correct.
So you're going to have to score a lot of secondary points if you're only getting a max of 40 primary to beat me.
And the last point I'll make on this is if you're for fast combat armies, I'm somewhat of a veteran of fighting against these at this point.
Come a little closer, Thomas.
just screen. If you just screen your stuff, put out something that you don't care about dying or that is more effort than it's worth to kill, then fine. They put something right in front of your whole army. You lost 60, 50, 100, 90 point, whatever, and now you get to kill it for free and do your turn anyway. So screening is usually stop those things from happening.
Yeah. So please, Matt, break down your wonderful wolves. There are no furries on Feminist.
Just see
but
that?
they are here. They are here on the show today.
Yeah, so going back to the changes to my list, I didn't necessarily make any changes to the list based on how I needed to play the missions. I made the changes based on how I think some other armies will play the missions. So I put a little more anti-tank in the list because I think knights are going to be more prevalent now that they're big knights. Because if I ran into knights, I'm like, well, I'm just going to outscore them because they have to either choose to score or shoot me with this big knight. Because I'd just kill all the little knights first. Now that the big knights can do actions and still shoot me, that really changes that whole matchup. So I put a couple lancers in my list now, drop my bike squad with and all that stuff to have a little more punch to deal with that big stuff because I feel that's more of a game now than it was before. Whereas before I was like, all right, you might kill my stuff, I'm gonna kill all your little stuff, and you just can't keep up with me on points. But I don't think I can play knights that way anymore.
Yeah. And speaking of knights, Khan was kind of asking, and he was asking the question again and just letting us know his understanding, right? There is a mission, a secret mission, right? If there's no enemy units left alive, that you could get to 20 points. Yeah, that's really if you're playing into knights or a very elite type army and you're killing them fast, right? Since Matt is talking about knights.
Well, there's some
and
caveats
like
in that too. If there's no units on the table, or if the units they have on the table are battle shocked, below half strength, or not within 3 inches of an objective, I believe.
Correct. All of those are correct. Yeah. So, but I mean, he's talking about tabling specifically, right?
Yeah.
If you're tabling somebody, which I don't think a lot of armies are currently, right? Even with orcs or whatever you feel like is the most broken army right now, Thousand Sons were one of the most, the strongest armies, right? I think everything is so balanced right now. You can probably table knights if they're bringing 3 big ones. You're playing with Tau, or you're playing some Iron Storm or some big guns to take them down very quickly, but I don't think so. But go ahead, Matt. I do apologize. I digress.
Yeah. Mid to low table, if you get the right matchup, maybe you can table somebody. If you're trying to do well at an event, you can't build a strategy around that because good players aren't going to let you table them.
No, exactly. Yeah, so it's all about the level of play as well, just like Matt mentioned. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, so if you played a store where it's kind of mid-level players and you have an 8-man RTT, you might be able to come and win with that type of list. But if you're going to like a real event, you're not going to probably do well with something like that.
Just like either you're ballsy or you don't have. If you're either ballsy or basically didn't bring in a battle line, you can take advantage of people mid-level, novice level players. But competitive players, they're going to at least take one battle line unless they're very brave and they're going to come out there with no battle line knowing that they're just going to tank on you, right? So go ahead, Thomas.
Oh, no, I'd say me. I'm well, brave or stupid, and I fall in the second category because I should take battle line. I don't got time for that. But no, good point that Almost Functional made is, and that I personally do, and I suggest everyone do. Don't plan for best case scenario. My plan's going to work. Don't plan for my opponent's just going to let me do this. You never know what they're going to be able to stop you from doing. How weird thing happens all the time. I've never had a game of 40K where there hasn't been an interaction where I haven't had to look up something because it's a complicated game. So when you're assuming matchups or a level of play, and you're like, oh, what does mid-level mean? What is high level? Just always assume you're playing someone as good as you. Assume the person from across the table, and just if you're theory crafting, if you're trying to figure out what units to add or what strategy to have, say, okay, my opponent's going to at least be as good as I am. What would I do to stop this, and how can I play around it? Because I've met a few people who are like, oh, I built this list, and it's going to work perfectly, and then player 2 enters the table, and their plan doesn't work perfectly, and they're like, where did I go wrong? Well, it's a 2-player game. But I see that question there, but before we get to it, Mr. Lewis, what changes have you made going in? Because I know you I know you personally. We've talked quite a bit, so you're not skating by either.
You don't want me talking about my orcs on the show.
I mean,
That's all it's going to be about. It's going to be but honestly, without not being facetious, I've had to make some adjustments. I think that Cult of Speed has a lot more relevancy now as well. I think Cult of Speed has the ability to actually put units with the ability to succeed with their units and so many buggies that you can put in your list, right? I'm still not the biggest fan of hitting on 5s when I could just run in and hit you on 3s or 2s with things. What I did change is the detachment, right? So Cult of Speed being 1, I'm no longer using Bully Boys. I'm back to what I thought it was from the roots, which is Warhorde. Warhorde, I originally thought was going to be the best one. I thought that it was going to be the lasting one with the longevity. And ultimately, I think that the meta might be shifting to Warhorde, right? I really love having that sustained hits. It feels so much better as an orc player to have those sustained hits, especially when you can proc them with gas goal, lethals, and critical hits on 5s. Those get very nasty, very fast. I have a love-hate relationship with Gasgol. I don't actually hate him. It's just I don't feel like he's an auto-include in my list. So I played a game recently with Thomas, right? Gasgol performed very well, but I don't think he has enough oomph in his list, basically, to take care of other armies that have a lot more things, right? Maybe in old One Eye, because I fought against a Malinceptor. Malinceptors are tough, but I had to break up Gasgol and 3 Mega Knobs. The Mega Knobs barely killed the second Malinceptor. So it really showed me that I needed to put more Mega Knobs in there. So I'm still running Mega Knobs. I think they're just better suited with 2 War Bosses and Mega Armor and 6 Mega Knobs, 3 in each. Have those in the battle wagon, and then I can get a couple other things on my list as well, which I put in Snickrod. Gasgol is he's an amazing piece. I just don't think he plays well into the addition. I don't think maybe he's too expensive. He just doesn't feel right. He just doesn't feel right. Everything else is a lot cheaper and feels a lot better. And it gives you that extra attacks, right? And I love that.
And he just hasn't been the same since Ragnar cut his head off.
Exactly. He hasn't been the same. It's like he's drunk all the time.
You went from very elite, like brick heavy Bully Boys to a bit more MSU, Cult of Speed, or Warhorde with a bit more general versatility.
And I added 20 commandos too. So commandos are definitely on the menu, my peoples. Commandos are amazing. They play great into this new Pariah Nexus. They bring everything that you need to kind of deal with stuff in the new Pariah Nexus missions. From holding objectives, from being in a place. If you have Boss Snickrod that's not attached to the commandos, he could be in a place very fast, relatively easily too, where it's just upsy downsy. Since they've taken away a lot of the upsy downsy from the game, right? He still has the innate rule. So my list has changed, I would say, significantly from going to a new detachment in Cult of Speed, which I would have never touched in Leviathan, to going into Warhorde, which I tried maybe once or twice. I thought Gasgol was going to be better in that. I don't know. I got to play around and maybe I need to add more Orc Boys. But now I have a lot more battle line. And speaking of which, so we don't keep Rebecca waiting, right? And I hope that you're still around, Rebecca. So is having no battle line really a bad thing with these new missions? I don't know. Matt says no, and I'll let him kind of elaborate on that. I haven't heard what Thomas feels, but on my opinion, right, since I'm already on stage talking about things like that, I think it's very relevant in my army, right? In my army for Orc Boys, I think it's very relevant because I want to screen out. And now, specifically, with the new missions like you're asking, right? Because there's 7 of them that need to be in a place, I don't want people in my deployment zone. I don't want anything in my deployment zone. I don't want to give you behind enemy lines, which is a lot of points. There's a lot of possibilities for people to pull that from the deck. So I think they have a higher value now. I don't think that they're end all be all. I think you need at least one unit or at least multiple units. They can protect your battle line, your back line, and do the actions for you, right? Since there's so many of that now, since actions are defined now, and it's more prevalent for things to get in your back line and for people to be somewhere. I think you need at least one. So go ahead, Matt. What's your opinion?
Yeah. Well, having no battle line can be a disadvantage, and I know that the way I built my list, I just accepting that. Like if we have raised banners, I'm giving you a couple point lead on secondaries, most likely, just right off the bat. There's certain mission rules that you get bonuses to doing actions and stuff with them, so that would make stuff easier. But I do still have units guarding my backfield. I have the infiltrators with the Phobos Librarian with a 12-inch deep strike deny, and then you can't target them outside of 12. So I do still have little battle line-like units guarding my backfield. It's just infiltrators have such a good rule, they just don't get the battle line keyword, that I had to choose between intercessors that you could possibly have a unit that gets a weird 3-inch deep strike or something that I can't keep out anyway that drops in and kills them, or infiltrators that don't get the battle line bonuses, but none of your rules overrule my rule.
Correct.
And then I have like some scouts. I got some drop-in inceptors. I got stuff like that to still do all these little actions and stuff. I just don't. None of them actually have the battle line keyword. So battle line.
Would you say you're countering? Would you say you're countering? Which you're bringing up a great point, right? Which I haven't thought of. So instead of bringing battle line, you kind of countering battle line by being able to just do the actions and things
I'm not
like
necessarily countering battle line, because battle line units can still do some of it better.
Yeah.
Just the battle line I had access to weren't giving up the battle line was better than losing the infiltrate from the scouts, the 3-inch deep strike from the inceptors, the deep strike deny, and no 12-inch shooting from the Phobos Librarian and the infiltrators. Just the units I brought have such good special rules for what my list is trying to do that they weren't worth losing to put the battle line in. Most armies will want battle line. It's just the way my list was built, it was a decision I made to not run with battle line.
Yeah. But your army plays a little bit different. Your play style is a little bit different as well.
If you're in a close game, you're auto giving somebody war of attrition if they can get a battle line in your deployment zone, because you're not going to have any battle line in your deployment zone because you don't have any. So that's that, and then you're giving up the raised banner points. And then if they get some of the secondaries, they give bonuses to battle lines doing actions. They're going to have better chances doing actions. So
or maybe you don't have good battle line too, right?
Yeah, well, there's a couple okay, like assault intercessors. Intercessors, I believe, still sticky. Gray Hunters and Bloodclaw, like there's some okay, but none of them are like amazing. Like some of the Custode battle line are great. Like some people have great battle line that they would bring even if they didn't have that keyword, and I think they're really going to benefit more than armies like mine, where I have to take a worse unit just to gain that keyword.
Yeah. Eldari, I was being told by Elf player, right? Elfie, my good friend Elfie. We're road warriors. We go out to events and things like that. Great individual. He plays elves, obviously his name being Elfie, right? He tells me that he doesn't have a lot of good troop options because they're pricey, right? Mm-hmm. So there can be some factions out there that just don't have a lot of troop actions, right? Oh, yes, Rebecca. So Rebecca says so hard to put battle line in salamanders. What do you think? You're a Space Marine player. Do you think there's anything relevant, Matt, for salamanders? And then Thomas can kind of give his input on that as well.
No, I think salamanders have the same problem I do. Scouts are better. Infiltrators are better. Like there's just so many other units that fill that kind of same role that battle line would fill for you.
Yeah.
With Marines.
Yep. But just better. Yeah. Hands down, way better. And cheaper too, aren't they? Aren't scouts cheaper than most battle line?
Yeah. Scouts are only 65, but infiltrators are 100. So infiltrators are more, but they're way better at screening and protecting your backfield than anything else you can bring.
Thomas, what's your thoughts? What's your battle line? So you're bringing 100 gaunts, aren't you?
I'm God, dude.
No, that's Kate. That's Todd's wife.
Gaunts and Tyranids is. Oh, if I, the problem with taking them is my opponent can just make sure I don't have any battle line left, even if I have them.
Well, I know your demons don't. Your demons have no battle line.
That's for mortals. That's mortal concerns. So Mesh has no time for the weak. Wow, it's sounding awfully corny in here. Anyways, no, gods are great. They're already in lists anyway, but they're also the move block. I mean, anyone who's ever played into, a gargoyle unit understands what they do. It's not glorious, but man, is it going to aggravate you. But then they die. So, for me, the armies I play, it's not really a concern. Like, I have been toying around with an Awakened Dynasty Necron list. But that is not very nice, because I'll tell you something. 20 warriors with stealth is just man, is that a brick to get through? That reanimates, and then there's a Technomancer to reanimate them again.
Yeah.
And then there's a Captic Reanimator to reanimate them again, and then there's a Strat to reanimate them after you start them the first time. Like, they nerfed reanimation what it was from the index, but if there's a rabbit hole you can go down to just string 21 guys out with a character through your deployment zone within 3 inches of Reanimator, within 3 inches of a Technomancer, and just say, cool, good luck. You're not getting back here, and they're not going to die. So, but as far as Tyranids go, it's just kind of a pill you got to swallow. You're going to have battle line in almost every matchup. You're going to use your battle line, and they're T3 1 wound, 6-up save. So, I almost was saying, like, even for my demons, jokes aside, it's a decision you make when you build for salamanders. Yeah, there's not a lot of good battle line for them. It is good for them. Land Raiders with Flamers and Flamestorm Aggressors with Vulcanistan, and a Dev Wound stratagem.
Yep.
Your opponent's like, oh, look at me, I'm 4 Custodian Guard and Draxus, and you're like, that's cute. Anyways, so, and forget not, it works in Overwatch, and their detachment rule for being within 9 inches works in Overwatch, and they're Flamers. So, yeah, no battle line kind of sucks, but just put them in the middle and dare someone to get near you.
True indeed. And another reason I think battle line is pretty important is Stalwart, right? Stalwart is pretty nice, being able to do actions while in close combat, things like that. So it could be, and it really depends. Like Rebecca, I would say, to be honest with you, it depends on the missions at the event that you're going to.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. If it's heavy on battle line missions with heavy on battle line mission rules, try to throw some battle line in there. Right? Even though it might be a little bit challenging, maybe at least one unit so you can do things with. Other than that, play your game and enjoy it.
Yep.
So, Thomas, sorry.
No, you're good. To your point, though, then to almost Functional's point about naming off scouts and scepters and other things, nothing exists in a vacuum. Your army my army isn't, 150 points between a gargoyle and a harbor gut unit. There are 2 Maliceptors, 3 Exocrines, a Hive Tyrant, the 6 Zone Throps, and a Neuro Tyrant, 4 Lictors. Like, my personal answer is, cool, I don't have battle line to do all these actions. I got 4 Lone Operatives. And, like I said, the gods, they're going to die. The 4 Lone Ops, if you get to them, might die. But 1, you got to get to them.
Yep.
And then 2, you have to actually kill them through stealth and some invulns and some other nonsense. So, it is a 2,000-point list, not a how many points am I investing into battle line list. So just kind of keep that floating around while you're considering your options.
Khan just wanted to point out as well, when you were talking about Necrons, Necromancers don't let it res models. It reanimates wounds to a unit, or a model rather, right? Which is true. Very, very true.
Yes. Now, off the top of my head, I don't know, but I believe the wording is, I don't know if it's heal D3 or it activates rights of reanimation, which if it does that, then it will bring back models. But you may be right. It might just heal wounded models.
Yeah,
it
does.
If that's the case, just put it next to the Catan you're inevitably bringing and watch your opponent cry.
Yep.
Oh, Maxwell, hush. Custodes have it all. Custodes do everything.
Custodians are sitting real pretty.
They're really nice. And I'm glad you're in a better place, Max. Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Oh, and I'm saying Custodians are sitting really pretty. I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier, friend of Moose's as well about custodians bouncing ideas off them. And custodians are terrifying. Like my only saving grace before was dead wounds that they didn't have protection against, and now they do. And now I'm just like, for Tyranids, that matchup has got real rough. It got really rough. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited more people get to enjoy, the game and actually play it.
I agree. The Custodians are doing very well too, and Space Wolves continue to do well, even though they got a minor. What was it? 20 points for the unit of 6, right?
Yeah, 20. 10 points. 10 points for 3, and then Wolfen went up. But I wasn't running Wolfen, so that didn't affect me. So I lost 60 points out of the list, but I was running a Calidus, and with her nerfs, I just dropped her, so I had 40 points, and then I dropped an enhancement off one of the characters and just picked up ATV.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like that. I don't like the points increase, but I like that all you had to do was simply put something else out, like an assassin or pull it out or something like that. I went up 170 points with my orc army, so I had to drop like a whole 20-boy squad. So I wasn't the happiest.
I know we're.
It is what it is. I adjust and I move on.
Is John Teach? Is that JT?
That's JT. Yeah.
All right. Dude, I used to have battles with him all the time back in the day.
Yeah,
he's the custodian player I was talking about. I was talking to him earlier.
No. There's 2 JTs. There's one JT that lives next to us, and then there's JT that was in the service in the military.
Yeah, because he used to come down. He used to come down to Florida. I don't know if he lived in Florida for a while or whatever, but I don't remember what he played. I think he played some sort of Marines or Chaos Marines or something. I think you remember fighting them, and he had like dreadnoughts or something pop into my head.
And last time I saw him was at LVO, I want to say 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Can I get your guys' opinion on something? Another change that looks small but is massive. There is no longer that only activate once per phase if you have multiple ways to activate. So relevantly, Orcs is never beaten. If you fought and then they fight you and kill you, you can spend it to fight again. Or Murderfang, who can just go to Candyland if they put their multiple units within 4 inches of each other. I only because it's for both your armies. I don't have anything like that, but both of you do. So
well, I know a lot of people were already playing that way. Well, Murderfang, Bjorn doesn't do it. But a lot of people, most people were already playing it that way because technically that's the way it was worded before. Now they just clarified 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there was a FAQ before that said you can only activate once no matter what. So people were playing that.
Well, maybe it was before that, but I never ran it, so I never paid too much attention to it.
But now they reverted that FAQ and said, no, if you can fight on death and you're like World Eaters, fight on death, you already fought, cool, do it again.
No, it was legal before. It was legal before because that's how I used to rule it at the events, basically, especially for the Hell Brutes for World Eaters. Yeah. It was legal before. It was just the wording was very ambiguous, and a lot of people thought, and a lot of people thought that you can do it one way, but you couldn't do it another way. So now it's completely where before what you couldn't do is you couldn't charge a unit, it fights you back, right? If it still survived, and then you fight again, you could not do that. Now it's just every single time that keyword and it's activated, right? It can continue to do so, right? So it had a small stipulation, and I had to educate a lot of people that it was more reactionary than anything else, and then you can continue to fight, and then you can maneuver, kill one unit, consolidate into a new unit, start fighting them, things like that, right? So.
Because Murderfang's rule is specifically if he kills something, he can just he can fight another unit if eligible, right?
Yeah, he could shoot or fight. Yep. So he just gets to pile in 3 and fight.
And they clarified that you can't shoot while you're in engagement range because the wording on that was ambiguous as well. Because people thought, especially with like vehicles, that you can use big guns never tire, or in the shooting phase, you can fight in the shooting phase instead of shooting. Mm-hmm. So they clarified all of that. I'm so happy that they clarified a lot of that. There are a lot of things that I'm gonna notate on Friday, so make sure to watch Rapid Fire Tactics. a lot of key things that I'm going to notate within those 25 minutes. Some rules that are still ambiguous, what rules don't work with it. I'm going to detail exactly what that's about. So I'm going to make everyone wait until then. And if you give us one more minute, we're going to pay the bills real quick. We're going to come back, finalize the last two topics. And yeah, give us 1 second with our last sponsor of the night. 1 minute. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Turn this into an epic display.
Hey everyone, I'm Lee the 40K Nomad, and this is my battle board in a box. The only display board you are ever going to need, and it will take care of all your armies. Let's open this thing up and show you how it works.
And then choose from the steps or the flat wall section. All display boards come with both options. Want to use the same display for a second or third army? No problem. Change out the picture, change out the insert, add some different terrain, and you're good to go.
All right, and we're back. And make sure to go check out the description section for Battleboard Studios, please. They have some wonderful displays. Everything that you can custom make. There are 2 different sizes as of currently. I know that he's probably more than willing to make you your own custom size and pieces. If you read in the description section, it's OCS 50. You get $50 off. $50 off. Helps me out, helps him out, continue with his product. I know he goes to a lot of super majors, GTs like that. If you ever come to my events, I usually have them on display for him as well to kind of help him market and advertise. So please make sure to go check him out and help support me as well. So thank you very much for everybody watching that. Guys, I kind of wanted to break down a little bit more about secret missions, right? And just give the additional tidbits that we were talking about secret missions. So for those of you who are not aware and just getting into 40K, Pariah Nexus, right? Secret missions replace Gambits, what used to be on Leviathan. It's designed to give players a fighting chance even when they're losing the game, right? So it gives you that opportunity, even if you're behind, even though it caps out at 40, like Matt said earlier, right? But it still gives you that winning opportunity, right? It also, players can make a secret mission that suits their army. With that being said, you have secret missions like Shadow Cohesion. Kill everything for 20 VP or pick one of every unit that is either battle shock below half strength or 3 inches away, like Matt was saying earlier. So you can potentially build something like that. I wouldn't rely on that, like Matt said, but you can potentially right? And at the end of the 3rd battle round, if that's what you have left on the board, then you might want to start changing your strategy to kind of play in that. Unbroken is control 3 or more objectives, not in your own deployment zone. So if you can do that and you hold deployments very well, you have lictors that are jumping all over the place. You have Boss Snickrot with orcs and commandos, right? That could potentially help you out. And also command insertion, where the warlord's in the deployment of the opponent and you're controlling that, right? So if you have these pesky elves or you have a fast warlord, you can really capitalize on that if you're behind in points, right? Yeah. You guys got any other insight on that?
Yeah, I find where I think these will most often come into play is, say you're playing something like super aggressive or like the Wolf, or something where they come up, they pin you back, and you can't get to the primary objectives. And then around turn 3, you finally dug yourself out, but you're only at like 5 or 10 primary, and they're up on you. And you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to get to 40 any other way. Then you take the secondary, because you don't give up scoring for the last 2 turns. You can still score primary if you have less than 20 to get to the 20 to get to 40. So that's where I find it'll be most often, is if for some reason the opponent is able to tank your primary score early, but then you kind of take control of the battle mid-game, and then you're need to catch up. Because if they're just crushing you and you take one of these, you're probably not going to be able to achieve it. They're probably stopping you off primary. You're probably losing anyway. But if it's one of those cases where you finally dig through them and you take control of the board and you're just behind on primary and you're not getting to 40, that's where I think you do these.
Yep. And he brings up a good point too, right? Like Hypercrypt with the Hexmark Destroyer. Throw him in that back 40 real quick for 20 quick points.
Not with my infiltrators back there.
So yeah, you got to be careful with that too, Con, right? Like individuals like myself, and I learned this from Matt. I say it every show, right? Matt is a genius when it comes to screening out, positioning, deployment zones, and things like that. I learned a lot from him when it came through with that. My world leaders weren't on point as they needed to be because I didn't have a lot of units other than one 10-man Jackal unit to kind of screen in the back. But now that I take 20, they can screen pretty well out. You can conga line them. You do what is called a dog bone, right? Because only one model only needs to be within two other models within 2 inches, right? And then you dog bone them at the end. So then you have that one model between those 2 models, right? So remember, you can stretch that out. Thomas, how long was it the other day? You said 22 inches for a 10-man squad, 32 millimeter bases?
18 inches, because you have 4 on the end. So you have 6 in the middle, 2 inches apart, and then those 4 are, 2 inches apart and 2 inches apart.
Yeah.
It's an 18, and it's so from model base to model base, plus an inch outside of that, because nobody can get within an inch of them without charging. It is an 18-inch zone.
Which, I mean, on 44 inches, right? Like, that's a lot of space to cover.
Yeah, but look, take a deployment zone, take steps where it's, 8 and 14 on the Dawn of War edge, right? You block out 18 actual inches, and then a 9-inch, 17 actual inches, and then a 9-inch bubble on top of that. Unless they have 3-inch deep strike, which isn't uncommon, or isn't rare, but like not every army has that. So a lot of people got to do it the hard way. And doing it the hard way, which is that, is nearly impossible in most. Like if you get search and destroy, you're just done. There's no deployment zone for you to go to. So
Thomas, you want to answer the question? How do you feel about nice chances with Pariah Nexus?
I think they have a better chance than they did in Leviathan for sure. I think the biggest change for them isn't actually that they can go through walls and a 1 in 6 chance for battle shock. Which, if you saw my Slanesh video on this channel, you know how I feel about 1 in 6 dice with hazardous. So that's just a funny rule.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think makes them really good is that now they can play deployment as well. It's a phase they get to exist in, because for every Titanic model, which Lord of Skulls as well for World Eaters can kind of help if you're playing Elite, every Titanic model constitutes 2 drops from your opponent. So if you're playing 3 Big Knights and 3 or 4 Armigers, depending on your points or whatever, that you place one Big Knight, 2 drops, 1 Big Knight, 2 drops. They just did 6 drops.
Yep.
And you got 3 or 4 left. And with transports and reserves and characters attaching to units being a thing, you might look at a 22 individual unit list, and by the time deployment comes, you're like, I got 9 drops. It's not uncommon. With characters joining and then those character units going in Rhino, like World Eaters. You could have 3 units of Berserkers with Karn the Betrayer and 2 other characters and Rhinos. That's 9 units that went down to 3 drops. You just by a third.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think Knight and deployment and first turn positioning determine most games. Like me and Lewis just played a game yesterday, and I lost on deployment. I did not realize it until turn 2. But as soon as he started his turn 2, I'm like, unless I make some god tier saves, I am done. And spoiler alert, I did not. So, yeah, no. I think Knights are sitting real pretty. Now, I won't lie to you, going through walls for a 1 in 6 chance of being battle shocked is fantastic for them. But I don't know if it's enough to make them top tier, but it makes them viable, and more importantly, it makes them feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're playing the same game as everyone else.
Yeah, I don't think any one of the changes really skewed Knights. It's all the little changes piled together really improved the quality of life of Knight players.
And I'm glad that they gave them they can shoot and do actions, right? They needed that, dude.
No, they didn't.
Titanic models, not the Armigers, but the Titanic Knights.
Titanic characters.
Even better, yep, even more. But
most of them are, but I think there will be situations where they're not. But yeah, it has to be a Titanic character.
Yep. Which I like. I'm glad that they did that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that they did that. They needed that love. They needed to be able to do actions too and still do what they do, because 300-400 points of a paperweight basically on the table, that sucks.
Well,
I guess Canis Rex is going to cleanse.
It changes the way you fight them. Because before, if you just like, all right, I'm going to eat the big knight shooting, just kill all these little guys.
Yep.
Cool, you can't score any points, kill me.
Yep.
Now, I think in some situations, you're going to have to take that big guy out first. If he's just sitting there doing secondaries, holding objectives, and killing you,
yep,
you might have to let the little ones run out and do what they're doing and try to take those big ones out earlier now.
Yep. I agree. So, Thomas, they have a question for you, good sir. Carmelo says, hey, Thomas, do you think the Parasite of Mortrex will be viable for these missions?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, but not because of the missions, because it got Synapse. And it's already Vanguard Invader because it has wings. And so the Synapse keyword makes it viable for the Synapse attachment as well to get enhancements. And something I just stumbled upon and realized while we were going over, circling back to the secret missions. Vanguard Invader detachment, you can make the Death Leaper your Warlord. And it never mattered before unless you were playing Knights and wanted to troll them by saying, yep, my Warlord's a lone op, good luck. But, like I talked about with Zoanthropes, Vanguard Invaders can come in a turn early. And more relevant to this, you can pull them off the board at the end of an opponent's turn. So, getting Death Leaper to those 10 Jackals on your back objective with 6 Strength 6 AP2 2 damage attacks, or your 5-man Sister Squad, or your 10 Gretchen, or your 5, even your Infiltrators. All right, I'll start 12.1 away behind a wall. I'll Rapid Ingress off a board edge.
Yep.
I move 8, and I can advance and charge in this attachment. Good luck. Mm-hmm. So, I think the Parasite is very good for sneaky plays. For holding it like terraforming or other things to hold objectives or do actions and not be interacted with, because it is a natural lone operative. And also having Synapse, you can move it up, and if you call Shadows, give them that debuff of -1 to that test. You can help spread that aura. So it's a lot better, a lot more improved. And, I mean, Tyranids did not need another 80-point lone op to throw on their list, but boy, howdy, we got it.
I believe it. Yeah. So the last topic that we kind of wanted to talk about, so then we can wrap this all up. We're about an hour and a half in. We love, first of all, everyone always hears me. Matt always hears me for Almost Functional, always talking about this, right? OCS is all about the family. I love camaraderie. Obviously, I was ex-military, ex-army, right? 19 kilo. I was a tanker. That's why I have the Onslaught Gaming tank, right? The M1A2 SEP2 tank. And I always want this to be a family show, give you as much insights, much information, and knowledge as possible. So this is pure education and comprehension. So last topic, upcoming studio plans is, for Games Workshop specifically, is that we're always going to have a summer, well, currently we have a summer data slate in MFM. So the points changes align with the new missions and check release. And I love that. I love how everything's aligning. If you've ever played 40K back in the days in 7th edition or prior to that, I mean, you were lucky if you got an FAQ for your book a year later, right? Matt knows that. Me and Matt have been friends for a very long time. And we know that, like, we've been in points, I think in 8th edition, where we had a brand new Codex of Space Wolves drop, and day one it had to get FAQ'd. And then it never really got touched again for about an entire year, right? Also, adjustments and points for units to reflect new mission pack changes, as we've been talking about today, right? There's been a lot of balance adjustments based on army performance. Orcs, Space Wolves with their Wolf Jail a little bit. Tyranids got a lot of love. AdMech are adjusted in points. So AdMech actually they oscillated, so they went up a little bit and went down as well. They got some new rules. So they think that upping their points is actually going to be relevant to how they're going to play in the meta now. We shall see. Hopefully we see some more AdMech players. That way I can get some more games into them, either win or lose. Also, official FAQs for core rules in every army with an ongoing update process based on player feedback. So make sure to be aware and cognizant that every 3 months you're going to get you a new FMM, right? Every 6 months you're going to get you a new data slate, and hopefully maybe 10th edition continues out in a very healthy manner where we're going to go a little bit longer than 3 years, because how long are we in, guys, already? Are we a year or more than a year into the system?
I believe we're a year in, because the Leviathan release was the beginning of last summer.
Yep. Yeah, it's always they always release right before ATC, which is why they're talking about moving it back a month from now on.
So 10th edition has been a year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because this is just the second chapter approved tournament pack.
Correct.
Instead of every 6 months like they were doing before, they're doing yearly right now.
Yep. And you're right about what they said about ATC. They always do it around that time. But if you think about it, right, they're always going to do it around somebody's super major time anyway.
Yeah, well, but they like June. They've always, pretty much, as long as I remember, their drops are always June.
Well, it also might move back a month, because their other 6 month mark got moved back by 2 weeks because of another big event they were releasing like the week prior, and now it's the week after. And that being LVO. So that might also be why, instead of doing it at like the beginning of January, they're doing it at the end of January. So now instead of doing it, in the middle of June, they might do it at the like beginning of July or middle of July, just to keep those 6 month breakpoints.
Yeah, and I love it. I love all the updates. So you guys have any further thoughts? Anything else kind of you wanted to break down and bring to the peeps, or this is sayonara?
Almost, Function, you got anything?
No, unless they got any other questions, I think I've said pretty much all I got for right now.
Rebecca does say she's up in the air with AdMech. I feel you. I think that's going to be a little bit of dissecting that army out, really figuring out, especially that the robots went up in points as well, right?
Well, like 2/3 of their list went up in points, and they got a bunch of changes to the rules. Like AdMech got whacked all over the place.
They are all over the place, but hopefully they got significant better. Obviously, on paper, it looks different than on practice, right?
Yeah, they had a lot to adjust.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I do got one thing on that note, for people like Rebecca or anyone else, like Carmelo asking about all these questions about Tyranids. Right now, it's the Wild West. Play what you like. I mean, if this is a hobby, it's for fun. And I know people tell you, play for fun. But just, if you're not having fun, then don't. Like Mega Knobs, right? Anyone who just went out and was like, "Oh, I'm gonna rock this summer with 18 Mega Knobs," boy, you might still do it, but you're down like 2 or 3 other units to like you said you're listing up 170 points. So play what you love. Like the next list I'm playing, like I said, no battle line, all monsters. You take bringing down assassinate picks, you're getting 20. That's 40 secondaries you can just put down on your card. But it's fun. It's what I enjoy. So try stuff out. Don't look around on the internet and see what's good and what's not, because everyone has an opinion, even us.
Yeah.
And like right now, Custodians are a good example. People are like, "Oh, Guardians. Oh, Allurus. Oh, Bricks. Oh, MSU." You're not those people. That their idea are like the way you play Space Wolves. Maybe other people don't want to play it that way. That's not it. So do what works for you and have fun.
It's the right way to play. That's the wolfy
way. They can be wrong all they want.
But the truth is, no one knows what's good right now. Like, people have ideas, but everything's new. All like missions, terrain, secondaries, unit costs, some armies. AdMech got overall. Tyranids got a pretty big facelift. So put stuff on the table and see what works. That's the only thing I got.
Well, I disagree. I think 40K is always very serious. There's no room for messing around. You gotta, full seriousness all the time.
Give me your war cry. This is battle. Ah! That hat. So for those of you who are enjoying the hat, give us a thumbs up. Give us some comments if you want him to continue to wear the hat on every episode next time, right?
Yep.
Throw him a bone, buy him some dog food. I don't know, whatever you got to do to make him keep on doing it.
There is one more question I think, Lewis, you should answer. It is from Miss Nikki. Nikki Marie.
Oh.
If people were into this, how would you suggest they stay into this?
I skipped that one. Well, if people were into this, how would they stay into the Warhammer 40K world, you're saying?
This show, this podcast, what is this? What is OCS and how would people continue to find it?
OCS is an educational show about Warhammer 40K and entertainment, comprehensiveness, right? We are bringing to you what is called Onslaught Candidate School, the opportunity to learn with us, and we teach you our knowledge, right? We have 2 panel experts. Mr. Thomas and Almost Functional has a fantastic show as well. Thomas is a fantastic individual in person on the show, obviously, that knows the rules on a very high level. So does Matt. I'm very humble. I'm just a type of individual that I'm a tournament organizer. So I like to have a lot of people around me. I grew up with a lot of family members. So this show is all about educating you. No matter what level of gaming you're on, this is what we do. This is what the idea of what I had initially of bringing OCS to the world was to make sure that we level out the playing field. I don't want people who don't understand the game to feel discouraged to play a Thomas or play against with a Matt or play with a John Lennon or someone like that, which we've had on the show previously. So go check out that video. Exactly. So anyone, nobody's ever heard of him. The singer. We're talking about the singer, of course.
Oh, from
so
the
that's
Beatles.
really yeah. That's right. That's right. The singer. John Lennon could only be good at one thing from the Beatles, right? So this is what it's all about. It's about unity. This is why I say all the time that I love a lot of people to be on the show. I want everyone to be here. If you want to be on the show, let me know, right? Message me. Send me some comments. If you have some great insights that you bring to value from your army, if you want to talk about salamanders like Rebecca, or Nikki plays another army, sisters, or Marines, or custodians, or whatever you might want, right? Come on down. We want you all in here. We want you to bring out this beautiful information for everyone. So thank you for the tee up, Thomas. And thank you very much, Nikki.
And I don't know. So I don't know if Lewis has any plans, but he's going with me to ATC. We're playing on a mercenary team down there. And I'll be doing a lot of stuff about how we're doing on rounds of stuff on my channel. I don't know if Lewis is going to do any on his or not, or if he has any motivation to do that while being busy all weekend. So he may or may not, but definitely check out my channel. I'll be keeping track of what we're doing, and I'm doing a lot of ATC specific content for anybody going that could help you out. So, and Lewis and I are going to be doing a lot of back and forth shows on both channels, coming up with the new codexes and all that stuff. So if you want to get all the content of both of us, I would suggest liking and subscribing both channels so that you never miss whenever him and I get on here and share these expert opinions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any outro, Mr. Thomas?
No, my outro is telling people to have fun because, sometimes people lose the forest for the trees, and it's a game, people. Like, it's fine. Yeah. I promise.
Yep. And it's your first time officially being here, part of the panel, right? So congratulations to you. Hopefully everyone enjoyed you being a part of it. Thumbs up, comment, make sure that he feels nice and warm and fuzzy about the situation. If not,
give him a lot of likes. He'll invite me back.
Exactly. If not, thumbs him down, not the platform, and let us know. But I kid, of course, right? I think he did a fantastic job, and hopefully we continue to have him around as long as he's not busy, right? And we always love Matt. We really love his hat. So Make sure to like, share, subscribe as always. For those of you who don't already know, right, I have the OCS, which is the Onslaught Canada School, which we do every Tuesday. We're going to do it next Tuesday as well, live. And then I also do the Operation series, which is called Ops. I'm usually doing interviews with individuals with either won an RTT, a major, or some type of level of things. And Rapid Fire Tactics, they come out at 6 p.m. on Fridays, every Friday, as long as there's relevant information to kind of push out. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, if you didn't catch on, I have some insightful information that I'm going to drop on Friday about technicalities, about rules. So you might want to listen and pay attention to that. All right. Thank you to everyone as always. Love you very much. Give us your war cry. Huh! And I'll see you guys later. Guys and ladies, take care. Have a great night. You give the wolf cry. I love it. I love it.